everyone! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. I'm making an entry to my crochet project journal today. If you're looking for some inspiration on keeping your crochet projects and patterns organized, then stay tuned. Let's see what I've got in store. Today I'm making a crochet project journal entry for our oval placemat with a starburst border. We did a tutorial on this placemat a few years ago, and we have a free written pattern available on our website. This is exactly what the pattern looks like. So if you wanted to zip over to our website and print one off for yourself for your own pattern journal, then feel free to do so. We'll link both the pattern workshop page to our website and also the tutorial for this little pattern in our description box down below. Whenever I do a journal entry, I like to sort of get all the things together that I'm going to use. So I have my pattern, I have my notes page. This has a decidedly fall feel to me, so I've grabbed some autumn-inspired colors for my markers, and of course just some regular scrapbooking stuff. I've got some double-sided tape, I've got a couple of cute little punches in case I want to add some little paper accessories to my page. And then I always like to have a little crocheted version if I can. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but I made a little miniature crocheted version of that placemat. Obviously this is much smaller than the original one, just so instead of having necessarily a photograph of it showing, I'd have an actual miniature version of it for my journal. And I love to add crochet to the actual project entry because it's just a neat way to use up some of my oddball small threads or sock weight yarns, and I love having an actual physical visual representation of the pattern. So I went ahead and made one of those too. And I'm just going to show you how I put everything together. One of the most important things in a project journal is the notes on the project itself. And Mr. InStitches designed a notes page for me and a project journal binder cover and a few things. So if you're interested in actually having a version of this journal kit for yourself, we have a downloadable, printable version in our Etsy shop. We'll link that in the description box down below as well. So if you want to sort of get a jump start on creating your own project journal, you can check out that kit over there. And this is the notes page. So I've always liked to go ahead and dress it up a little. I used my leaf punch to sort of punch out a few little leaves. I love to add stickers, and this sort of big shiny apple reminded me of the fall. I drew a few little leaves here, and most importantly, I've kept all of my notes. So this is my oval placemat. I did it around the fall of 2016, so I dated it. The yarn I used was Bernat Handicrafter, and I actually have one of the big labels that I use Bernat Handicrafter cotton a lot, and I just sort of tuck that on the back of my notes page. That's really good for super future reference. So I know I use a lot of this yarn, but you know, 30, 40, 50 years even from now, if someone else is going through this book, this will be very helpful for them to know the kind of yarn I used, the size it is, and just sort of some general product information. So I like to keep that handy. I've also included the colors that I used, a rough estimate of the amount I used per oval placemat, the cost per skein. I think they were little $2 balls back when I bought them. And of course, very importantly, the hook size. I used a 4.25 millimeter on this project. Sometimes instead of drawing out an actual pattern, I even sort of create a little, it's almost like a crochet sketch. I use some crochet thread, and I play around with sort of the math and the idea of how I want the overall thing to look. So that's my little sketch that I created back when I was first thinking about making this little placemat. And instead of putting in a photograph here, which you can do, I already have a photograph on my pattern. I thought I would include this here as sort of the photograph, just sort of as a cute little reminder. It's a nice place to keep it. I didn't want to toss it out. This is a good place to keep your yarn. So that's an actual piece of the yarn that I used for the project. That's a size 4 weight cotton yarn, and I included that there as well. I also added a little bit of a background for it. I know it's a silly little thing, but I like the look of that sort of running stitch all the way around the edge of a piece of paper. I think it kind of adds just a little bit of a visual interest. It's a nice way to finish it off, and I just basically did a little little dashes with my marker to match the same color as my thread there. So I like the way that looks. Further things along the notes, special stitch or pattern, just a note that it has the sunburst border, and that's sort of a helpful note for me to remember sort of how I do this little edging around the whole basic placemat. And then the final size of the placemat or the project, I included that, and that also, I made a note that it includes the border. Washing care and instructions, this is really helpful. So I've used now these for quite a while, and we typically toss them in the washing machine on gentle, and then I lightly block them. So just as they're drying, I kind of pull out the little points just so that it kind of keeps looking as neat and tidy as it did when I first made it. But like any project, if you really want it to look nicer, longer, hand wash. So I made a note here to hand wash for best results. Anything that you might want to remember for the project specifically. So I like to play around with my projects when I make them multiple times, and I just had a note here to avoid a traveling seam. I might want to try the false stitch and skip the chain 3 method, which I have used for crocheting in the round for other projects. So I just made a note to myself for future reference. I included a sticker of a little hedgehog here, sort of snuffling around in some leaves. Again, because I feel like this is kind of fallish. I really think that's cute. I love to add stickers to my my notes pages, or even sometimes the pattern itself, as long as I feel they kind of fit with the theme. It just adds a little bit of color and cuteness, makes it sort of nice to look back through when I do down the road. And then any other colors or yarn patterns I want to try down the road. I made just a couple notes about double stranding it or using super bulky yarn. I thought maybe that shape might make a really cute rug too. So sort of thoughts for future projects there. Another little sticker and a few more of my little punched out leaves. And that is my notes page, complete with my little yarn label on the back. For the main title page of my little project journal entry, I chose this really neat printable burlap paper that I purchased. We'll put a link to that in the description box down below as well. I found some on Amazon. It's really neat. You can print on it. The back has sort of a plasticky feel, so it will run through your printer neatly. But I love that it's actual burlap. It has a really fallish theme, and that's why I thought it would go nicely with this particular project overall. Again, I made a miniature version of the placemat using a sock weight yarn that I had that I really didn't know what else to do with because I only had the one ball in this color, and I've used it for a few other like tiny little things, but I just love the way it highlights that pretty little edging, and of course it has a bit of sparkle in it, so it's really pretty when I go back through my project journal. That'll look really nice when I turn the page. I also made myself just a little title for my title page. I like to layer paper on paper on paper. It kind of, I think, looks neat as a little title. I just hand wrote oval placemat. I used my little hole. I have a little pretty little punch. It's got a little sort of maple leaf as the punch, and I just punched around the edges just to kind of give the idea that there might be leaves lying on top of the title. Then I laid it on top of another piece of paper, so I glued it to another piece, punched out some leaves across the bottom of that, and then glued it onto yet another piece of paper. And that's it. That's my little title. I think that looks really cute. I also had some stationery that had a neat little sort of copy. It's still that maple leaf theme, sort of dancing along the corner. So I cut that out, and I'm just going to use it as a bit of a sort of a bracket or a frame for my little title. I have another nice piece of, just a piece of square paper. It's got a little bit of texture to it, but it's a nice sort of golden yellow, which there's a little bit of that in this particular yarn that I chose, and it also has a fallish theme. So I'm going to use that as sort of the bottom corner to sort of offset that little frame there. I'm going to lay this on top of it. And because I like to save everything, I saved the little leaves that I punched out of my title paper, and I'm just going to glue them sort of around the edge. I might even mimic that little leaf pattern up there. And then all I'm going to do is lay it all down and glue it into place. You can use glue, double-sided tape. I've got a few things here, but because of the texture of the burlap, I'm just going to use regular old white glue. I'm not too concerned about wiggling or sort of the wrinkling that can sometimes happen with paper. So I'm just going to set that just inside the top edge. Just give it a little bit of a press. I'll do the same thing on the back of my title. And I will offset that on the inside. And same thing, I'm going to sort of put this in the bottom corner. So just some regular glue. I like the edge of that burlap showing through. I think that's kind of a neat artistic touch. I also like the natural look of them not all facing in the same direction, because leaves tend to land in a somewhat random pattern. So I'm just going to sort of twist them so that they're not all kind of going in the same direction. There we go. And now I just want to layer my little placemat in on top. And I don't really want to use glue to glue it down, so I'm going to use some double-sided tape that I have. I think I'll use 2 lengths, that'll be enough. This whole thing is going to sit inside a little plastic cover, so really I'm just tacking it into place. That's about the middle. And that's about the same length again. All right, and now the fun part, I gotta try and peel this top bit off. There's one. And 2. Great. And then I'm just going to position this right here, right in the middle, and then just sort of pat it from the inside out and smooth it down. And like I said, the whole thing is going into a plastic little package, a little plastic sheet. So I don't really worry about like the edges sticking up or anything, because the plastic pocket will keep it all in place. And there we go. That's just a simple, cute little title page to my entire project. And now I'm going to put it all together. So this is the little plastic pocket that I like to keep my projects in. I'm going to start with my placemat will be first. Then I'm going to put the pattern directly after it. And I'm going to put my notes on the back so that the notes are facing out. So when I turn the page, I'll see the entire project title page and then the notes on the back. And I like the notes page. The note page is kind of interesting and fun because I decorated it. And I know the pattern because I've got a little version of it on the main title page here. And I'll be interested to sort of read my notes first, I think, when I turn the page. And I know that if I need to see the pattern is tucked into the middle. So I'm just going to slowly work this into the little pocket here. Make sure I'm not getting anything caught on the back. There, perfect. There it is, all tucked into its little pocket. I've got a really sweet title page now that tells me what the project is. There's a real physical sort of representation of it that I created for the title page. And when I turn it over, there's all my notes. Plus I know that the main pattern is tucked into the middle of it. Now all I have to do is add it to the journal. And that was today's crochet project journal entry. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon here on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye everybody!
Hi everybody! Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.